Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news, and there is lots to discuss this Wednesday morning. We're going to be starting off with Sancho, but so many different players to talk about. Lozano, Werner, Ighalo, Ramsey, the return of football, Bundesliga as well. But let's start off with Jadon Sancho, and this is another update coming from another journalist, Marcotti. You may have heard of him, very respected journalist, so not necessarily by Man United fans, I must admit. He's on ESPN, I think he's their chief writer actually, but he's just been on. We had Phil Brown last week who does Beyond the Pitch podcast. He had Marcotti on as a guest yesterday. Very good podcast if you want to listen to it. I'll drop the link in the video description. And they were speaking about a lot of things. They were talking about the return of football mainly, but they did get on to Sancho, and what he said about Sancho is that he's heard that Sancho prefers and favours a move to London, but obviously he'll probably prefer where most money comes from and who can give him the best projects. Now, this is very interesting because I think when you say that you've heard that he would prefer a move to London, well, that basically means Chelsea, because Arsenal would love Sancho, but Arsenal would love a title. Neither are going to happen. Spurs would probably like Sancho, but Daniel Levy's not going to pay that sort of money, and Sancho's not going to go and play for Mourinho because he's seen what Mourinho has done in recent years to people like Rashford and Martial, flair players. So when they say favour a move to London, they mean favour a move to Chelsea. So Chelsea fans will get quite encouraged by that. Chelsea have never been out of the race for Sancho, but Manchester United are winning this race. But the reason, look, any journalist, whether it's Fabrizio, Simon Peach, we'll be talking about in a moment, journalists that I really think are fantastically credible, doesn't mean that you hang on every word. Like, you don't do that. Like, it's a life lesson. Just because you respect somebody, don't listen to absolutely everything they say without thinking it through for yourself. And when I heard this, although it was a very good podcast, I thought, well, saying I've heard that he prefers a move to London, but then again he'd probably prefer whoever's going to pay him the most money. I think that's a bit of a vague statement to make, and also let's timestamp it, because there was talk of him favouring a move to London about a month ago, and things change day to day. But also, I think the biggest thing out of this for me that doesn't concern me is that the statement about whoever pays the most money. Some United fans will say, well, we'll just pay the most money, but that to me is the most dubious part of the whole statement, because look at Jadon Sancho's career. I keep saying this. Look at his career. Does he strike you as a player that is focused on money over his career? He will get a lot of money because of his career. He doesn't need to focus on money. Some players do. We've seen people go to Man City like Robinho, thought it was United and went there for the money. We've seen lots of players do that. There'll probably be players who go to Newcastle because of the money. And people have done it for Man City, Chelsea in the past, Blackburn Rovers. United have bought players because of money. Di Maria. But Jadon Sancho is not a player so far in his career that has sacrificed potential money to sit on City's bench to go to Germany to play first team football and get himself as one of the best young talents in the world. He's not going to go, Chelsea have got a better project, they're in the Champions League, but I'll go to United because they're going to give me 20 grand a week more. He will go to United because he fancies the project and believes that's best for his career, or he will go to Chelsea because it's best for his career. I think Champions League football will still have a big thing to say in it. But I don't think money will be the thing that defines where Sancho goes, because that's not what he's done in his past. So I don't look. Maybe this is true, but it doesn't concern me. I think United is the place that he wants to go. But as we've always said, things can change in any transfer deal, and I would say the two favourites for Sancho are United and Chelsea. The fact that he might like to go to London because he grew up there. I mean, at the end of the day, the UK is not that big. I mean, you can be in London in a couple of hours on a train. It's not that big. And the reality is as well, he's a professional footballer. He's been in Germany for how many years? And yeah, he was in Manchester before that. So I don't think going back to London because it's where he grew up. He can do that when he's 35, 30. I mean, he's not, he's such a young lad building his career. I think United's the place is best for him. If the deal is to happen. So I'm not worried on that one, but we'll see how it develops further. But I still stick to what I've been told and what we were talking about last week and 2 weeks ago. United are at the front of the queue. Sancho fancies United, but things need to be hurdled. The price needs to be established, which I don't think will be over 90 million, and also United probably do need to get Champions League football. So we'll see what happens with that. Also last night, another credible journalist, Simon Peach of the Press Association, tweeted out last night, good to hear from him, that Manchester United want to extend the loan deal of Ighalo. I tried to explain last night, a lot of people still confused by this. We're not signing Ighalo to be our striker for next season. His loan deal ends at the end of May. Obviously the season's not going to finish by the end of May. So United want to extend his loan to the end of this season, whenever that may be. And there is talk that they've penciled in the August the 8th as an FA Cup final, which would be the end of the season. So they would want to, because we could be in the FA Cup final. I predict if we do get back, we'll probably play City in the final. I think that United want to extend Ighalo's loan deal to August. That's what they want to do. It's not keeping him for another year. We may well still keep him for another year, and maybe as part of this we might have to keep him for another year, because it's down to this Chinese club that he plays for as to whether they extend it or not, because they could say no. So money's going to be involved. I'm sure Ighalo wants to stay at United. We'll see what happens. But this is a big thing. We need, if football's going to come back, we need Ighalo to stay till the end of the season, because it'll be a big loss to not have Ighalo for those last 2 months of the season if we come back. If the season gets cancelled, then you've got to make a decision about whether Ighalo has done enough to get a long-term deal, or whether you send him back to China. That's a different conversation if the league gets cancelled. I don't think we need to have it now, although you can have it in the comments if you want. There is some talks. I'm going to do a bit of digging on this today for the 8 o'clock show, but there was some, Manchester Evening News spoke about it last week. I think there's some German sources talking about it last night, that Manchester United and Chelsea have made contact with Werner's agent. However, Liverpool remain the favourites. So I'm not going to add more than that. I think we'll pick that up on the 8 o'clock show tonight, because there's a couple of calls I can make today and find out a little bit more, hopefully. But I predicted this before lockdown, probably end of January I started saying this. Manchester United and Chelsea are going to be linked to the same players a lot. We've got it with Sancho, potentially with Werner, Moussa Dembele will be the same. We are going to be linked to a lot of players with Chelsea, because Chelsea need to buy players. We need to buy players. We're both chasing Man City and Liverpool, hopefully. And it doesn't mean Man United and Chelsea are looking at the same players. It doesn't mean because we're looking at Werner, Chelsea are. It could just be Chelsea's name will get thrown in with Man United a lot this season. I genuinely think United are looking at... Well, I know United are looking at Sancho, and I think Chelsea are as well. But I don't think it's the case with every single player. So I'm not so sure that Chelsea are looking at that. However, Werner would be a very good player for Chelsea, so maybe he is. Maybe they are. And we can't beat Chelsea to everything, and, let's see. Interestingly, ESPN Mexico were talking about Hirving Lozano. Blast from the past here. I can't remember how many years ago. I remember I was in London. The video will be on the channel somewhere. I was in London doing a course... I know it was a long time ago, because it was 2 jobs ago, and I got back to the hotel room and this story came out about Hirving Lozano, and I did it in the hotel room. The story about Hirving Lozano, I didn't do anything else, nothing like that. And I like Hirving Lozano. I think he's still only like 24, 25, but I'll tell you why we won't sign Hirving Lozano. 1, we're not looking at Hirving Lozano. 2, we've had plenty of opportunities to sign him and not done it. 3, his agent is Mino Raiola, which is a big thing. And 4, we'll get Sancho. So we won't need Hirving Lozano. So I like Hirving Lozano. He's not set the world on fire at Lazio, and he's definitely not set the world on fire at Lazio, because he doesn't bloody play for Lazio. He's not set the world on fire at Napoli. He did very well at PSV before that, and I don't think I just don't see anything in this. As much as I like the player, maybe it was a signing of a couple of years ago United should have been looking at, and not now. I don't see anything in that at all. Aaron Ramsey's been mentioned by Calcio Mercato in Italy as being part of a swap deal for Paul Pogba. No, and more no. Just because he's gone from Arsenal to Juventus doesn't mean that this would not be a mistake of Alexis Sanchez proportions. He is and was at Arsenal quite injury prone. He's now touching 30, and he's again, it's in that danger zone. It's the danger zone of players that United have had their fingers burnt with before, where you go and get a player who's touching 30 or just over 30. I'm talking about Sanchez, I'm talking about Schweinsteiger. These players are coming towards the end of their career. They're injury prone, they're expensive, and you're going to give up one of the world's best midfielders on his day for somebody who's on the decline, who also used to play for Arsenal. No, Aaron Ramsey cannot be part of that deal. Not at all. We've got to think cleverly here. and I'm not talking about Tom Cleverley, I'm talking like Cleverley in relation to intelligence, football intelligence. We're trying to build something. We're trying to build something that's going to close a gap on Man City and Liverpool over the next 3 to 5 years. Aaron Ramsey's not part of that vision over the next 3 to 5 months. So we've got to look. I think if Aaron Ramsey's there, you're better off looking at somebody who's 22 who over the next 12 months is going to develop into a good player, rather than Aaron Ramsey who probably can give you 12 months and then is going to not become a good player. So I would not be looking at something like that. On football returning, you may well have had the news when you're watching this. Depends what time of day you're watching this, because this will go up at 10 o'clock. But around 11 o'clock, they're talking that the German government will announce what's going to happen with the Bundesliga. There was some talk of it coming back on the 15th of May, which I think is a Saturday. They're now talking about the following week, and I think what they're going to do is they're going to announce that it can come back, but they want a quarantine period of 2 weeks before football matches start again, which is common sense. I think that was always going to be the case. You've got to have 2 weeks before you start playing games. The interesting thing is, for anybody who's talking about the Premier League, and we got quite in depth into it last night. I really enjoyed last night's show, by the way. If the Bundesliga fails, then the Premier League will probably just say forget about it, because the world will be watching the Bundesliga, not just because it'll be football to watch, but they've got to get to football. Like 2 weeks training before they play, will somebody get infected? I'm up in the air about this one. I'm 50-50 on this as to whether, because it's not just the Bundesliga. I think they're going to do German League 1 and 2 as well. So there's a lot of football with a lot of people involved. Are these players going to be kept away from family and friends? I can't see a scenario where at least one player or coach doesn't get infected and then that whole team has to quarantine. So it just depends how relentless they're going to be to get the games played. And I hope they are going to be relentless. I mean, we don't want anyone dying or anything like that. But as I was watching something last night, and the point is that the lockdown was there to help National Health Service in this country. And there is an acceptance by worldwide governments and health advisors that we are going to have to go back to normal with a level of infection. And with that level of infection, there'll be a level of people dying. We are not able to lock down forever to stop people from dying. We can't do that because people will die from other things, poverty, mental health, all sorts of things. So we are going to have to come back into a world where there's a level of this pandemic until we get a vaccine. So how the Bundesliga does that is going to be interesting, because if you get some infections, do you then say, oh, let's cancel it all? Or do you go, well, no, we expect this to happen, we're going to keep going, and the team that's got the infections will just have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and we'll just keep going, and they can play their games at the end or whatever. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And why it's interesting is because the Premier League will be following something that's a bit ahead of us. So let's see what happens with it. As I said last night, I think for the Premier League, we're still in lockdown. We've still got a lot of people dying in this country. We're talking about something that won't happen till the end of June. And I just think we need to just be patient and see what happens. And that's what we'll be doing with what happens with the Bundesliga. But look, wouldn't worry about Sancho. As I said before, Sancho, I think, will come to United. But I can't give 100% on that because he may stay at Dortmund. Many things can happen. But I don't think... I'm not worried that he potentially favours a move to London. You know? I favoured a lot of things in my life and I didn't get it. You know, you go for something that's best for you. So I think Sancho will still come to United, and I don't massively concern myself about that. But I'll timestamp the SoundCloud podcast for you to go and listen to that bit. But effectively, it was quite a small bit, and it's only what he's heard. I've heard something different. Romano's heard something different. Other people have heard something different. Thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video. We'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight. Subscribe if you're new. Have a fantastic day, and I'll speak to you later.